My wife's mental health and infidelity pushed me to the brink. She blamed me for her actions and our marriage fell apart. Now she's begging to come back, but I can't trust her anymore. We got married recently after being together for 6 years and engaged for 3. Our wedding was delayed twice because of COVID. My wife Emma has always struggled with her mental health, depression, ADHD, and anxiety, but it seemed to worsen over the years, especially during the pandemic. The isolation and a family health scare took a heavy toll on her. She lost her job but quickly found a remote one, which had irregular hours. I tried my best to be supportive and she often said I was the only person who made her feel she could become who she wanted to be. A few months after our wedding, Emma contracted COVID and suffered from long COVID symptoms. It was a difficult time both mentally and physically. Just as she was recovering, she got COVID again, and the long COVID symptoms returned. We managed it better the second time, but the stress was overwhelming. We became extremely cautious, wearing masks everywhere and avoiding indoor dining except for special occasions. Despite our precautions, Emma spiraled into a deep depression after her second recovery. She took a leave from work, and during this time, I took on all household responsibilities while working full-time. During her leave, she started to improve. She tried various activities, but the only thing she did consistently was yoga. Her sleep schedule was erratic due to her depression, leading to late nights and naps during the day. She began taking late yoga classes and then going to bars afterward, claiming she needed to think about therapy or draw. She would say she intended to be at the bar for an hour or two but would stay until closing time, often coming home drunk. One night, while charging her phone, I saw a suspicious text. Out of curiosity, I opened her phone and discovered she had been cheating on me. She had met a guy at a bar, given him her alternate email, and they had been meeting up to make out and eventually had sex. She also had inappropriate relationships with 2 other men, exchanging explicit texts and photos. I was devastated. When she woke up, we talked and cried. She seemed genuinely remorseful, saying she felt wanted and alive with these men but never wanted to be with anyone else. She admitted she was mentally unwell and apologized for destroying our marriage. I wanted to work on our relationship and her mental health, so I told her I wanted to stay with her. The next day was difficult, but we managed to get through it. After her therapist appointment, she seemed defensive, blaming me for her actions and claiming it was a violation of privacy the way I discovered her infidelity. I was unhappy with her lack of guilt. Over the next few days, she appeared to take responsibility, and I had hope for our growth. But then she wanted to think about her job after an afternoon yoga class. This was 5 days after I found out. She delayed coming home again and again. I told her she couldn't do the same thing she did when she cheated so soon after cheating. How could she expect me to trust her? I went to the bar she was at and told her this in person. She insisted on staying until 2 a.m. I left, and she came home later. I don't think she cheated again, but the trust was shattered. After couples therapy the next day, she had another therapist appointment. Since then, she has barely been home. She gives me loose plans but says she needs space. She comes home late, sleeps on the couch until I wake up, then goes to our bed until it's time to leave again. I fear she will demand changes from me to avoid feeling trapped. I want her to be healthy and have healthy coping mechanisms, but I also want her to be with me. She still texts "I love you," but hasn't said it in person for a week. I'm scared she wants to separate completely. Not just for my sake, but for hers. She's had SA thoughts, and I just want her to be okay. I think she has projected her parents' relationship onto me and sees anything I do as controlling. I believe her therapist is encouraging separation based on what she's heard, but I suspect Emma is being selective about what she tells her therapist. For example, she didn't mention her infidelity for the 2 months it was happening. I doubt she told her therapist how often she was going out alone drinking. At our next couples therapy session, I fear she will say she's moving out, and if I don't agree, I'll be seen as controlling. I don't know how it has come to this. Our couples therapist said, just because she feels trapped does not mean that you're trapping her. But I'm scared Emma is choosing now to assert herself in the most unfair way. I don't want to lose her and start my life over, but I also don't want to give in and have her think I'm controlling. That would lead to a life of resentment. I know I'm not blameless. We sought couples therapy for a reason. I'm argumentative, and she gets triggered by confrontation due to past trauma. We've worked on it, and I'm improving, but I'm not perfect. Above all, I want her to be happy and healthy. How can she think I want to control her instead of seeing that she's coping unhealthily? I'm numb writing this. I try to understand in every conversation, even if she feels I'm just trying to win or if the conversation escalates due to my tone or her trauma. It's the number one thing we've talked about, and it hurts that she thinks I want to control her. What I'm proposing, not demanding, is as mild as being home by midnight on weekdays and trying to sleep well for her mental health. The situation continued to deteriorate. Emma's late nights and erratic behavior became more frequent. She started spending more time with her new friends from yoga and the bars, and less time at home. Our conversations became more strained, and the distance between us grew. One night, after another argument about her late-night outings, Emma packed a bag and left. She said she needed space and time to think. I was devastated but knew I couldn't stop her. She moved in with a friend and we agreed to take a break from each other. During our separation, I focused on my own mental health and well-being. I continued therapy, started exercising regularly, and picked up new hobbies. It was a difficult time, but I knew I needed to take care of myself. Emma continued her therapy and tried to work on her issues, but the distance between us only grew. We communicated occasionally, but it was clear that things were not improving. She seemed happier and more at ease without the constraints of our relationship. After several months of separation, we had a long and emotional conversation. Emma admitted that she no longer felt the same way about our marriage. She said she needed to focus on herself and her mental health and that being in a relationship was too much for her right now. I was heartbroken, but I knew deep down that it was the right decision. We decided to end our marriage. It was a painful and difficult process, but we both knew it was for the best. We agreed to remain friends and support each other as we moved forward with our lives. The months following our divorce were challenging. I struggled with feelings of loneliness and sadness, but I continued to focus on my own growth and healing. I leaned on my friends and family for support and slowly began to rebuild my life. Emma and I stayed in touch, but our interactions were limited. She continued to work on her mental health and eventually found a new job that she enjoyed. I was happy for her, but it was difficult to see her move on without me. A few months after our divorce, I received a call from Emma. She was in tears, saying that her new relationship had ended. She showed up at my doorstep, begging for another chance. She said she realized she had made a mistake and wanted to come back home. I was torn. Part of me still loved her, but I knew I couldn't go through the same pain again. I told her that I couldn't take her back. She became increasingly desperate, showing up at my house unannounced and calling me constantly. It got to the point where I had to get a restraining order to stop the harassment. It was a heartbreaking decision, but I knew it was necessary for my own well-being. Update 1, 6 months later. It's been 6 months since I posted my story, and I wanted to give you all an update. First of all, thank you for all the comments and support. It was overwhelming to see how many people had my back and understood where I was coming from. I've made significant progress in my own healing journey. I've continued therapy, and it's been incredibly helpful. I've also reconnected with old friends and made new ones. I've started dating again, and while it's been a slow process, I'm hopeful about the future. Emma and I have remained friends and we occasionally catch up. She's doing well and seems much happier. While it still hurts to think about what we went through, I'm glad she's in a better place. Update 2, 1 year later. It's been a year since our divorce, and I thought I'd give you all another update. First off, thank you again for all the support and kind words. It really helped me get through a tough time. I'm happy to report that life has been getting better. I've continued to focus on my own growth and well-being. I've been promoted at work and have taken on more responsibilities. I've also started a new hobby, photography, and it's been a great way to express myself and find joy. Emma and I have both moved on with our lives. She's in a new relationship, and while it was difficult to accept at first, I'm genuinely happy for her. I've also started dating someone new, and things are going well. It's been a long and difficult journey, but I'm finally in a place where I feel hopeful about the future.